Hey guys, it's Layla here from Ignite, and today I want to talk about analysing form in non-fiction text. So if you're a student that's approaching comprehension, or you just kind of want to brush up on how to analyse non-fiction texts, which are, by the way, feature articles, biographies, autobiographies, any text that's not a fictional text, what I'm about to go through will be really useful for you. Students often find non-fiction texts a little bit harder to analyse, and I would tend to agree. That's mostly because, unlike fictional texts where there's a lot of dense and rich language, a lot of imagery, emotive language, we don't really have that with non-fiction texts. And that's typically because their intention behind writing the text is usually to persuade us about a particular idea or to inform our understanding of something. But with those two authorial intents, we can still make use of some pretty good formal analysis, and that's what I'd like to take you through today. So typically, because it's a persuasive form, we want to consider how this text is impacting us with the realism of what it's trying to convey. And that's really important because it is a non-fiction text, which means the content it is conveying is a reality. So they're trying to convey that realism and tell us, this reality could actually impact you. So buy into and engage with the subject matter. So we want to investigate how the text is able to do that. And there are a couple of questions I would like you to consider whenever you approach a non-fiction text. The first one is, how is this content presented to us? And when we're thinking about the content, we're asking ourselves about the narrative voice, or what kind of progression in ideas is used. That's what I mean by how is it presented. And secondly, why does it impact us in this way? And answering the why will naturally gesture you towards the effect. So how is it presented, what formal elements are used, and why is it impacting us in this particular way? So the first formal element, and the one that I focus on really in this video, is narrative voice. And this is always going to be relevant regardless of the type of non-fiction text you're given. When we're considering narrative voice, we're asking ourselves, who is actually speaking to us in this text? Who is narrating the story? And as you would know, there's primarily two types of narrative voices we may have. You've got your first person narration, which is what we would get in like an autobiographical text. And if you're going to identify first person narration, you may like to think, okay, is there more of an intimate relationship that's being conveyed between myself and the persona or the person reading the text? And in addition to that intimacy, are we given a kind of privileged insight to this character's life or experiences that they are giving to us within the text? Conversely, if it's written in third person, it may not be as biased as a first person narration. With first person narration, you only get that one person's insight to the text. So this is where third person narration is a little bit more omniscient, is the word. It's got multiple insights and pieces of information that we gain insight to. Having said that though, if we have a non-fiction text, and this is the case in the example that I give you on the next slide, if we have a text that is written in third person but kind of privileges insight to one particular person or a character, you might like to ask how narrative focalization or perspectivism allows a privileged insight there. So narrative vocalization, or focalization, is where we delve into the mindset of one character primarily, thereby instigating a deeper insight to their thoughts. And focalization really mobilizes a greater insight to what that character is thinking, and thus a sense of empathy. And perspectivism is just a synonym for that. So narrative focalization or perspectivism are both ways that we can gain insight to a particular character, even though the text is written in third person. Now, there's really no better way to understand the impacts of an aspect of form other than looking at a text and kind of breaking it down together. So that's what I want to do. We're going to read through one paragraph from a non-fiction text I found called Family Portrait. We'll have a look at the narrative voice and how that impacts us as readers, and then I'm going to give you an exemplar response, which will really direct you on how to isolate a quote and apply the formal analysis to it. So hopefully it'll be useful. Let's have a read. Shauna Turner is like most 15-year-old girls. She likes playing on her computer, shopping, and has 312 friends on Facebook. The difference is that Shauna is adopted. Shauna was 2 years old when she was adopted from Vietnam by an Australian family living in suburban Melbourne. As a young child, Shauna was happy and outgoing with a passion for ballet and reading. She got on well with her adopted family, and often old friends would remark that she was exactly like Terry at her age. So, if we take a step back after having read the text, there are 3 questions that I want to ask you guys, and feel free to mentally answer them before I go through the close analysis. The first one is, in what person is the text written? First person or third person? Have a think about that. How does this position us as readers? So the person that the text is written in, does that open more of an intimate engagement with the subject matter, or are we kind of distant and just analysing from an unbiased perspective? And finally, does this impact our relationship with the central protagonist? So those are the 3 questions I'd like you to consider whenever you're confronted with a non-fiction text in an exam. This is what I think about these 3 questions. So the first one, in what person is the text written? If we flash back, Shauna Turner is like most 15-year-old girls. It's third person. We don't have an I in there. It's a third person talking about Shauna Turner. However, even though it is written in third person, the text is focalizing Shauna's perspective. Every single sentence kind of builds this profile of Shauna. It's really characterizing her. So even though typically we would associate third person with more of a distance, the third person actually hones us in quite closely to the subject matter of the text. So I think there's a little bit of a negotiation of the third person narration with a little bit of narrative focalization. How does this position us as readers? Well, because it is third person, we have that unbiased insight to her, but because that third person then uses that omniscient narrator status, the omniscient narrator being the all-knowing narrator, to give us all of this information about Shauna, it builds our profile of her, it characterizes her, and because of that, we're actually more inclined to empathize with her character. And finally, does this impact on our relationship? Some of my discussion has already really answered that. And the answer to that is that we're more empathetic towards her. We have a profile of her, we know about her likes, and then after we've gained that insight to her as an individual, we're also then introduced to the fact that she's adopted. So we see both sides, the facade of Shauna as an individual character through the third person, but also what's different about her. We gain that privileged insight because of the omniscient narrator. All right, so considering that aspect of form, the narrative voice, and the effects that we've discussed, I'd like to show you how you actually put that into a sentence and how you utilize an aspect of form within your analysis. So in my response, I've color-coded the aspect of form being the narrative voice, I've pinpointed a quote, I've used a verb to explain what effect the composer is able to reach, and then the effect is obviously in blue. So let's have a read of a response. While the text is written in third person, which enables an unbiased insight to the experiences of Shauna, the text focalizes her experience. The opening heightens our insight to Shauna's character. We learn through the omniscient narrator that she likes playing on her computer, shopping, and has 312 friends on Facebook. As such, the opening characterizes Shauna and allows us to empathize with her character. Okay, so my first sentence is kind of building my understanding or showing my marker that I understand the use of third person. It gives us the unbiased insight. However, I've extended that and said, well, it also focalizes her perspective because we focus primarily on Shauna. Nonetheless, even though it is written in the third person, the text focalizes her experience. The opening thus heightens our insight to Shauna's character, and I justify that through my pinpointing of evidence. I've used that particular quote which tells us about Shauna, and then I've explained how that characterizes her, and the ultimate effect is that we are able to empathize with her character. So that's how we've connected the aspect of form, we've given evidence, we've used the verbs to explain what this does, and produced the ultimate effect. That's all for my analysis today on the narrative voice in the non-fiction form. I hope you enjoyed the introduction and the specific example. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and if you'd like some more on form, not only non-fiction text but other texts as well, be sure to subscribe, and we've got more content coming through. Thanks so much. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you do like the content, subscribe to our channel and we'll have more videos coming your way.
That's right, guys. Thanks for watching. And please make sure you check out our online resource database. We've had a team of state rank achievers and heads of English put these together for you, covering everything from essay structures and examples all the way through to craft of writing and comprehension skills. So check them out at ignitehse.com.au, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.